before I got up here, she says, "Now do you have to go to the bathroom?" And I wondered, how old did I become when my wife started telling me when to pee? You know, what, they can't see me? She told me not to wear a hat, so I'll turn it around backwards, so that way you can't see all the scars on top of my head. She also told me, she says, don't tell any off-colored stories. So I decided I would just stick to the facts. And the fact is that, Donna was at the session today, and she was telling me that Merle has a lot of spare time now that he's not president of the organization. So much spare time that a couple months ago he went down and he interviewed at that new Elmo doll factory. You know, the Elmo doll is the one you tickle and it laughs, the Tickle Me Elmo thing. And that was a big selling item this Christmas. And so he went down to interview, and they were so impressed that he knew a lot about tools that they gave him the job right away. And he says, you're going to be in our test division, and your job is to test the dolls at the end of the conveyor. If there's any problem with the dolls, you fix it. He said, I could do that. And so halfway through the first day, the foreman came to the boss, and he says, this new man you hired is not working out. He says, come down here to the floor. Well, down on the floor at the end of the conveyor was a huge pile of Tickle Me Elmo dolls. And Merle was on the floor. He had some red cloth, and he was sewing little bags. He was putting 2 marbles in each bag and sewing them between the doll's legs. Well, the foreman went down and says, Merle, that's not what I told you to do. I told you to give each doll 2 testicles. Anyway, now, Anthony, that's a joke. So, I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to turn what's called the, what is it called? The double-axis square turn bowl, and I should get extra points for the title. I thought that would work well in the Olympics with a title like that, like diving off the high board and doing the double-axis square turn bowl. And this is the final product that I made about a year ago, and I'm not going to do the carving on today's bowl, but I'll pass this around because I'm probably not going to get to the end product, but this is the end product with some carving on it. But double axis because I'll first turn something this way and then you turn it to another axis. Turn it another way to get it square. So I'll pass this around. You can look at this if you get bored with the demonstration. And although I undoubtedly can't complete the project, I'm going to show enough that I think you can go home if you want to and work on this project. The first thing, I started with dry stock. I believe it's maple. I've had this plank in my garage for years, and I assume it's maple. That's as close as I can guess. But I've got 2 pieces of that stock, and then I have some scrap wood, and you can use it. Probably works better if you use 1 piece, but I had 1-inch stock, and so I've used that in the center. I glue it up with, I use Gorilla Glue. I like that for this project because it holds real well. Glue that up, knock the corners off on a bandsaw, and of course you wind up with a block looking like this. The first step in setting up, and the reason I've used 1-inch stock is because I can divide 1 inch pretty easy into 1/2 inch. If you use 3/4, you've got to go to those real little marks, and that gets kind of tough. And so if I find my pencil, measure, mark the half inch like I've done here and over here, and it's important then to mark that axis. With the line all the way across. Do the same on the opposite side. I've already measured, so mark that axis where you're dividing right in half. And by using that scrap in the middle, you should have a line that's fairly straight with the one on the opposite side. Mount the piece between centers. figure out the new machine. And then, of course, the first part is to turn a cylinder, and it's important that you keep the cylinder straight so that it measures the same. Otherwise, you don't wind up with a square. And so I'll knock the corners off of this. Pull on. Look at that baby go. There we go. I'll figure it out soon here. I will. I mean, anybody that tells me when to pee, I mean, I'm getting old, but not that old. I mean, man. Wait a minute. Tighten that baby up. Ways to go yet. Okay. One final cut, and then I'm going to turn it over. typically I'd take a pair of calipers, make sure that was the same here as it is here. It looked like it's a little more here, and I would sand that, but due to the old clock on the wall, I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is change axis, and the reason you put these lines here is so you can get the correct axis on the other side, and you draw a line from this point to this point, lining up the two marks that you already put on the center axis. Line there. Line here. Maybe that's 5.5. Mark your center, and that's where you're going to mount your block on the other axis. Now before you start your machine up, turn the speed down because this gets a little trickier. A round object when it comes off hurts. An object like that really hurts. So I usually wear a face shield, but nah, we won't wear a face shield. Good luck, you front row folks. Get ready. We've got this presidential plate in front of me, so I think you're safe. The trick on this is to also get a straight line. The difficulty being you sometimes want to roll over the edges because you're turning more air on the edges than you are in the center. And so it's easy to let that tool slip. So it's kind of tough to get it straight sometimes. We'll see how I can do. When the machine starts to jump, you know you're going fast enough. And that's not good. See, if you're not nervous in the front row yet, you should be. Check to see if you're making a smooth cut. It'll get smoother before I'm done. See, Mike would, I'm glad he's not here. Not yet, no. Not yet. Not yet. tell I've had that plank in the garage for about 20 years because it is hard. Woo. That's going to be ugly. It's going to be an ugly square turn bowl. Not to worry, not to worry. That old dry wood is chipping out bad, sort of. But when you get to where your axes are close together, that's where you need to stop. Had I taken a little more time, been a little less forceful with the tool, it would have been a lot smoother, but not to worry. We'll fix that. Chainsaw. What you normally do, you go to the bandsaw and you split that after you have it nice and you've sanded it up and it looks nice on the line you've drawn. There we go. Why doesn't my finger show that right there on the line? And I'm not going to waste time at the bandsaw. I brought my pocket knife with me, so I can just cut this baby with this pocket knife. Just a second here. Give me some time. And it comes out like this. I smoothed it up a little bit with some sandpaper, and I just about cut the cord in two. Well, what do you expect? Anyway, the good deal is you've got it fairly square. You've got it smoothed up. At home, this works a lot better than here in the show. But now the fun starts because you have to make a jig to mount this in. You can't just put that between centers. And so you take two 12-inch 2x4s and you mark the center, and then I measured over 3/4 of an inch each way to mark where I'm going to put my cross pieces. And then you have to take your compass. Move this so you can see a little better. On the center line, you measure from here 3/4 of an inch this way, 3/4 of an inch this way, and then you strike 2 arcs. And what you have to do to figure out how far to set that is measure your blank, measure your diameter, set it for the radius half the width on this, okay? And the reason you back up 3/4 of an inch is so that it will set proud when you mount it in the jig that we're going to make. I use that 3/4 inch mark. I use this 3/4 inch mark. See, I'm getting so old my hands shake. Which is why my wife tells me when to go to the bathroom. No, I'm doing fine so far. Then you take that to the bandsaw to make a few more cuts. Give me a minute here. Yeah, perfect. And you have the jig. You've cut just the arc out of the one piece of 2x4. And you also cut the other that way, but you cut out a 2x4 width out of the center because when you put these together, you're going to go like this. But you're going to mount them on a 12-inch piece of 3/4 inch plywood. Are you taking notes? I didn't make a handout, so I certainly hope you're taking notes. That's right. I'll sell you this one, buddy. That's right. Anyway, you lay out on your piece of plywood, perfectly centered where these 2x4s are going to fit. And the secret of that is take your center mark and measure 3/4 inch one way and 3/4 the other, and you've got the width of the 2x4. You can go either way. They're $55.99 if they're not assembled. $55 even. Anyway, then you're going to screw that to the bottom. I put 2 or 3 screws in each piece. Do not use sheetrock screws because, believe me, you'll twist the head off when one of those hits you. Ooh, that hurts. Don't try that at home. When you have it screwed together, it looks like this. Okay? Right. Now, when I learned how to do this, the fellow mounted his piece with hot glue. And that I found is hard to do. And I've lost, here we go, my turn piece. And so this is going to mount right in here. You go to the bandsaw, cut those arcs, and if they don't fit, you have to kind of play with your bandsaw a little bit, get it so it closely fits the arc. The other day, rather than the hot glue, I used tape, mounting tape. You can buy, it's just Scotch brand mounting tape, heavy duty, and it held it nice, but there again, wear a face shield. The other thing I learned to do was to just put plain masking tape on, because this has quite a bit of stick them to it, and it's kind of hard to sand off your wood. And so if you use masking tape, it doesn't leave much to sand off. Florists use that trick if they have a nice vase and they want to hot glue some pieces in. They'll put masking tape down on the vase first and glue to the masking tape, which is a trick I learned from my wife. So I do listen. I did wear a hat, though. I don't care. Don, do you get more orders the older you get from your wife? It's what? It's a good thing. Okay. Double stick tape. I do have a pocket knife. Somebody mentioned that's a Swiss Army knife. Yes, it is. And the reason the Swiss Army is so feared by all is because of the corkscrew. Nobody wants to be attacked by a corkscrew, believe me. And so they always carry those. Now you ask yourself, am I sure that's going to hold? And for those in the front row, yes, I'm sure that's going to hold. What? Oh, don't tell them that. We have a knockout bar in the house. You would say that. Okay. How's that? Better? I need a knockout bar. Here we go. Found it. And I've pre-drilled this to fit my screw chuck. Next thing is turn away your waste block. And like I said, I'm sure this is not coming off, which is why I'm putting this on. I'll be the first to know. At home, it didn't come off. Turn your lathe down. Not that far. Makes a great fan. The problem is I usually wear a full respirator because it throws the dust all right up your nose here. Again, the tough thing is being careful to try to keep that straight, because you tend, again, when you start to turn air, for that tool to go in deeper, and then you don't get a flat surface. But it's easy to make an OG curve if you want to make an OG curve out of it. That's just waste wood, so it doesn't make any difference how you get it off, just so you get it out of there. Let's see how far I have to go yet. Oh, about halfway. The real trick is to keep your arm and your hand on this side of the tool rest. You'll only put it over there one time, and then you kind of learn. That's right. Now, if your shop's in the basement and your wife likes a clean house, don't do this. It blows the dust all over everything. It's coming. It's coming. Faster, faster, faster. close. Oh, I'm just about down there. This is probably one of the more boring parts, so I better tell another Anthony joke. These three guys went to Yellowstone, and they met at the lodge there. And were having dinner, and as they got to talking, they found out one of them was a Presbyterian minister, one of them was a Baptist minister, and one of them was a rabbi. And they got to talking. They said, "You know, we're all men of God," and they got to talking about Daniel in the lion's den and how he was able to tame the wild beasts. And they said, "You know, we're men of God. We should be able to do that too. So when we go out to Yellowstone, let's see how we can do with the grizzly bears." And so they said, "Let's meet here in about 2 weeks after our vacation. We'll have lunch again and see how we did." They came back in 2 weeks, and the Baptist minister says, "You know, I did pretty well." He says, "We ran into a grizzly bear, and he looked pretty mean, but we sang a couple hymns, took him down the river, baptized him. The bear was calm as could be." And the Presbyterian minister says, "That was great." He said, "I did okay." He says, "We found a female bear. She had a couple cubs. That kind of made us nervous, but," said, "we sang a couple hymns and had a potluck dinner, and that bear was as tame as could be." But when the rabbi showed up, he was in a full body cast, had bandages on his head, and he said, "Okay, maybe circumcision wasn't the place to start." I don't know. See, Anthony, I told you the pressure was off with that joke you told. I'm going to make one more pass, and then we're going to call that good. Do the clock on the wall. Clean that up just a bit. Again, I would get that so it was fairly straight and flat, and then to test and see where you want to make your bowl, to test and see if you're centered, you can put a line, and that's fairly centered. And so then, of course, it's just a matter of regular bowl turning. You bet. Don't come off now, baby. I told you it wouldn't come off. Didn't come out. Okay. Not a problem. Okay, you get that. Now the finished part. You pull that baby off there. Good thing I wore that. See, See, I knew after Mike this would screw up. I did. I thought, man, that would be the way to do that. Hey, believe me, in your home shop, it works every time. But I knew what would happen here. Anyway, the last trick is to make that little divot in the bottom so that it'll sit. And somebody, when I took the class, they showed how to do this. He said, well, why don't you do that first? And he said, well, he wanted all the adhesive material surface that he could get, and so he didn't want to have a divot in the bottom because he said that's usually where it sits the tightest. And so you wait till last to turn that. Although that tape holds so well, you could sure try it if you've got the guts. But if you don't want to try that, take a screwdriver and take your 2x4s off your blank, which just assume that I did that. This is good for building your shoulder muscles, your biceps. And then the trick is, well, how do you get that centered on there? And the easiest way I've found to center that thing, turn your lathe speed down. Break your pencil. If you're a deer hunter, this has multiple purposes. And if you're not, you can just use it for this. This isn't that heavy. What? Really? This is just a matter of matching up the rings, and if I had one more ring on there, I might be able to match them up better. But bring the tailstock up. I use a detail gouge to do the bottoms. Lower this just a bit. Something that makes that a little easier to do sometimes, put that small cone on there and you get a sharper point. You can get your tool in there a little easier. But you get that far, and then it's a matter of taking off that nub. And I just have a palm carver that I use to take the nubs off. It works pretty well. Really? Thanks, and it just dawned on me I do have to go to the bathroom. But I know. That's right. Good advice. Always keep your hand lower than what you're working on. Anyway, you sand that up and turn for you with 10 minutes to spare the double axis square turned bowl. For a price. As well as the optional target that you can use.